Good afternoon, everyone. I hear there we go. Perfect. My name is Tova Train. I'm Canadian Hadassah-WIZO's national president, and welcome this afternoon. I'd like to introduce our two speakers. The first is Risa Epstein. She joins us from Canadian Young Judea, which is Canada's largest Jewish youth movement, where she's been the national executive director for the last 30 years. In her role, Risa has had the opportunity to create projects and initiatives and use her expertise in the world of residential summer camping, Jewish and Holocaust studies, and information education at the grassroots level. Most recently, Risa founded Machane Lev, which means Camp Heart, in January of 2018. And Machane Lev is Canada's only Jewish residential summer camp created for LGBTQIA plus youth and their allies and family members. Machane Lev has successfully run 3 summers and continues to grow every year. Our second guest is Ellie Gamliel, and she's been a part of the Canadian Young Judea family national team since 2019. Starting off creating flyers for programs and managing social media accounts, she is now the director of marketing and communications for the movement, connecting alumni, campers, and supporters to CYJ from coast to coast. In 2021, Ellie stepped into the role of Billowim Israel Director, running the CYJ Teen Summer Israel program, which I had the pleasure of joining part of this past summer. Most recently, Ellie completed her graduate studies in experiential Israel education at George Washington University and now acts as the Director of Israel Education for CYJ. Canadian Hadassah-WIZO supports the JOLT program that they'll be speaking to this afternoon. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we are. We're so glad that CHW asked us to speak today, speaking about supporting the future of Jewish leaders, because that's what we do. That's our bread and butter at Canadian Young Judea. And we're so honored to be here, both myself and Risa. We're going to explain a little bit about who we are as Canadian Young Judea and how we came to be a partnership and what our partnership looks like with CHW. So as Tova said, we are the largest Jewish Zionist youth movement in Canada. We have 7 summer camps from coast to coast. If you know some of them, Camp Soalim, Billowim Israel, Camp Hatikva, Camp Shalom, those are all under and affiliated with us as a youth movement. We run our Teen Summer Israel program that we'll be speaking about a little bit later. We offer year-round programming for our youth and alumni engagement to keep people connected. And of course, as always, fundraising and offering scholarships to our summer camps, year-round programming, and Israel programming. As Tova introduced us, we're Risa and Ellie. Risa's been working with the youth movement since she was a camper and camp staff many years ago, and I joined also as a camper and staff, and we both work in our national office. Risa Epstein has her graduate studies in Holocaust education and genocide studies from York University, and of course has run our youth movement for over 30 years as a summer camp director for 15 years and a leader in our community. And myself, as Tova said, I studied experiential Israel education at George Washington University, and I'm so glad to be here representing our movement and all that we do. A little bit about us and what our mission is. So as a youth movement, we are working to engage and empower Jewish youth, but not only that is to foster a sense of leadership and a commitment to not only the CYJ community, but the Jewish community at large, and of course, Israel and Am Yisrael, the people of Israel. We are a pluralistic and inclusive movement. We do not subscribe to any one particular political ideology, as well as one particular sect of Judaism. We welcome all to our community. And we're actively striving to transform and present toward the ideal future of the Jewish community and of Israel. At Canadian Young Judea, we have something called our Darkenu, which means our way, how we seek to educate young people. And we do that by having 5 pillars, main pillars or values of our movement. And these pillars are imbued into everything we do at Canadian Young Judea, because we believe that if we're just offering programs for the sake of offering programs, they will be fun and engaging, but will they be meaningful? So in order to create meaning and to really make valuable connections and engagement with our participants, we have these 5 values. I'll run through them quite quickly. Our first is the Mishpacha Yehudit, or the Jewish family, the understanding that we are a part of something greater than ourselves, fostering a Jewish identity in each of our participants, whether it's building it from scratch or finding new ways for their own personal growth. Tikkun Olam, of course, repairing the world, leaving the world a better place than we got it. And we'll talk about how that is shown very clearly in our JOLT program. The centrality of Israel in everything we do. Of course, we're a Zionist youth movement, so Israel is at the center of everything we do. And then Dugma Ishit, which translates to leadership by example. We believe that we can't have leaders or teach leaders unless we're being the leaders that we believe we can foster and grow together. And showing that in our everyday life and in our actions, not only our words. As Tova said, CHW supports us in many of our endeavors. The main one that we'll be chatting about today is the JOLT program, which is Jewish Outreach Leadership Training. Then our Biluim Israel Teen Summer Tour, which Tova was with us in Poland, and we were so honored to have her join our program. And then Machane Lev, as we said, Canada's only Jewish LGBTQ summer camp, residential summer camp. So a little bit about Machane Lev. We opened in 2018, and we're so proud of the community that we build. We offer programs all year round to queer people, queer youth, their family members, their friends, their allies, creating a safe Jewish space, because what we've found is that not every Jewish space is welcoming to the LGBTQ community, their allies and family, as well as the conversation of Israel is always a little bit challenging, because the queer Jewish community straddles so many political identities and religious identities as well. So this is a really beautiful space. We have about 50 campers every summer, which is our maximum to have a small community and staff, a wonderful community of staff as well.
I just want to add about Machane Lev, Elle, if you want to go back. Machane Lev, at the beginning, people said, why can't these queer folk go to other camps? And they can, and they do. This is not to exclude the queer community from all of our regular camps or all the Jewish camps that are offered in our community. However, no matter how accommodating regular camp is, it is still challenging for queer young people to exist within those realities. And we wanted to give them a place where there were no accommodations made for them, that this was their space where they could celebrate and feel free to be as queer as they need to be, and to voice their opinions, and to learn about their Jewish community role models and leaders and history within the queer picture. It was, someone said to me, why Risa? Why did you start it? I'm a cisgender straight woman with 3 kids and 2 grandchildren. And so how did you become the one to start a queer camp? And I think a lot of it goes back to institutional knowledge. After working so many years within the institution, I was actually approached by a social worker 5 years ago who worked within our camp system, who was talking to a Jewish family with a trans little girl who wanted to send them to a camp. And I was honest at the time. I said, I don't think our camps were far enough in our change or our viewpoints to accommodate, but I heard of Camp George. Anyways, after talking to Camp George, the family didn't feel safe and chose to send their kids to Ten Oaks, which is a secular, wonderful queer camp for kids. And that really upset me, because I didn't want Jewish kids not having the availability of something of their own within the Jewish community. It was like, once again, the Jewish community was letting down Jewish families who had needs that were outside the norm. So at that point, I just said, well, I guess we're going to have to make a camp ourselves. And everybody looked at me like I was joking, which I wasn't. And 6 weeks later, I told everybody, okay, we're opening up Machane Lev. It's an 8-day camp that functions at the end of other summer camps. We rent out one of CYJ's affiliated camp. All of our staff are now clearly representative of the Jewish queer community. And all of our campers come from around Canada. We have kids from, we even have a few from the States. And we have a very high continuing on rate, and especially those who graduate out of our program and become staff. Our staff numbers are very high, A, because we give a 1-to-2 ratio, but also because some of these kids, even though we don't need them as staff, we want them to belong to the community. Some of the things I learned in this journey of mine of, we used to call it wokeness, but that has somehow become a dirty word, but my learning about the liberal left. So number one, I found out that a lot of queer families are underfunded, especially if they have queer parents. I'm not talking about, all the gay Jewish lawyers, and I'm not, with no offense to them, I'm talking about trans parents, non-binary parents. They're very underfunded, and even though we have a fee for the camp, very few people can afford to pay for it. I found there was a desperate need for this, and that for some kids, they told us, and we have testimonials that it literally saved their lives, that they were so closed off, so depressed, and when they saw this community and they saw these staff who have seen their way through and became young adults and productive and healthy, when they were able to discuss Judaism where they felt they had a part in it, it was transforming for them, and for some of them, life-saving. In the last year or so, since October 7th, it's become a very difficult environment, the queer community and their stance on Israel. And even there, we have had to have those difficult conversations about safe spaces. And I'll give you an example of this because I think it's so important. One of my ex-campers' favorite staff member put a post shortly after October 7th saying, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And look, I'm in my 60s now, but when I was in my 40s, I would have said, that's it, they're fired. They don't get the mission, they don't get the idea. I would send them a hostile email and we'd be done with it. But I said, I don't want to lose this wonderful Jewish person, young person from our community. They have so much to offer young people, their fellow staff, and the community at large. So I said, I would like to have a conversation with you. And she said, and they said, about what? And I said, about how the fact that your post made me feel unsafe in the community that I'm trying to build to make you safe. And they go, what are you talking about? And I said, from the river to the sea means me as an Israeli citizen or my family who lives there. You're asking for us to no longer exist. And of course they said that's not what they meant. And I said, I used the language that I used that I've learned through them. And I said, well, that it doesn't matter what the intention was. It landed that way. And it landed that way for a lot of Jewish Zionist young people. We had this conversation where it ended up that we could agree that we're never going to agree on the politics of Israel, but we're going to agree that we believe that the Jewish right to have the Jews to have a state and for them to protect it. We're going to agree that hostile language or using sound bites might not be the best way to educate our community. They apologized. They have been posted about that. They were able to come to me with an Israel curriculum for the summer that would, be able to be dealt with amongst these queer folk. And what could have been a very ugly situation turned out to be a really beautiful learning experience for both of us. Not comfortable, but out of that conflict came beautiful growth. And Canadian Hadassah-WIZO gives us money, supports us in being able to fund these campers to come to camp. And I can't tell you that it's God's work, but it's truly God's work, and the importance of the CHW dollars that go to help these families. The gratitude cannot be expressed.
Thank you, Risa. And I echo what you say 100%. So we're going to shift over to Billowim Israel, a program that is very near and dear to my heart. Obviously, I was the director for the last 4 years, saw our participants through the first year of traveling post-COVID, and of course, traveling through Israel post-October 7th this past summer, as well as experiencing Poland and Holocaust education post in a lens of post-October 7th Jewry and post-October 7th trauma. So Billowim Israel is the final stage of the participants' journey in Canadian Young Judea. Once they've finished our affiliated summer camps, junior camps, and leadership programs, they're welcomed onto Billowim Israel. And of course, we welcome other community members that are not necessarily from our camping system to round out the cohort. But they come to Billowim Israel. They have an opportunity to spend a week with us in Poland, where Risa is our lead educator, along fantastic educators from Israel who continue to join us year after year because of the amazing community we build here. We spend a week in Poland and then go to Israel for 4 weeks, where we really see everything. We travel from the top of the country down to the bottom, and we do things that are quite off the beaten path because we have opportunities of time and the value of time of 4 weeks to really dig deep into the country that we all love so much, digging into the geopolitical aspect of the country, the agriculture, the culture itself, the food, the music, what makes Israel so special and unique and beautiful, but also what makes Israel sometimes a challenging state or place to really hang your hat. We, as Risa said, difficult conversations arise always, and Billowim Israel, of course, is a place where this will happen. However, we also have really beautiful moments, many beautiful moments on Billowim Israel of exploration and immersion into Israeli society. And a few ways that we connect with CHW is they really provide us amazing opportunities while we're in Israel to get our hands-on experiences. And I'll shift to our next slide to show you some pictures of our participants in the last couple of years at some of the CHW programs that they support and support us in attending. So you can see our kids on the top left-hand side in the fields working at Nahalal, helping with the farmers, picking their berries, picking the produce. Underneath that, we had a beautification project at Nahalal where we supported the upgrades that they were doing to the school and to the community centers that they all participate in. Of course, we also do a school drive, a school supply drive, where our kids schlep some school supplies over from Canada and we bring them to Nahalal or their affiliated programs, new supplies for underfunded, underprivileged students, so they can have what they need to start off their year in September with all the supplies that they need to be successful and to have a good school year. And then most recently, we had a really amazing opportunity with a new CHW program called Hagal Shali, where we were welcomed by their program to surf in Bat Yam and to learn about what they do with the community there, learn about how they infuse leadership and community building and character building into the physical sport of surfing. Watching a bunch of kids learn how to get up on the board and have that confidence boost of getting themselves up and surfing a wave is really incredible. Their staff were incredible. And without CHW, we would not have had these opportunities that really will last, the memories will last a lifetime for our participants, for sure. Risa.
So JOLT program. JOLT has been with us for about almost 20 years, but it's gone through different incarnations It actually started off as a regional program for Toronto, and it was called then VTO, which was Vad Tikkun Olam. And it morphed into something different as the needs of our kids have changed. You know, what we're trying to teach kids is about the value of Tikkun Olam, the value of Tikkun Olam through donations, like what is philanthropy, hands-on work, and what does that do for the individual? If I participate in Jolt and I do an outreach, what that means to me, what does that mean for the community um, I'm helping, and what does it mean for the Jewish community to as well. And as many of you know, about 10, 15 years ago, very few teenagers in the Jewish community wanted to do anything with Jewish Tikkun Olam. Africa had become very exciting to them, a lot of trips to Africa, fundraisers for Africa, and we were involved in that as well. And I'm not saying that that isn't important, but we believe as a Jewish Zionist youth movement with Jewish and Zionist supporters, financially and emotionally, that our job is to lead to educate Jewish young leaders. And therefore, we decided to change our JOLT program to look a little bit more internally, then externally, and then globally. So what does that mean? So the first part of our JOLT program is to talk about who are you as a leader and what is your role as a Jewish young person, 15 or 14 or 16. What is your role in making this a better world? What does it take for you? And especially in the last couple of years, there's been COVID, now October 7th. All of us, especially the young people, are kind of exasperated. They don't know if they can make a difference. And what we try to teach them, it's not about the snowball, it's about the snowflake. That each snowflake, each act, each good deed, each act of kindness builds on another one to make the world a better place, and especially to make our world a better place. We have two choices now in society. We can become part of that angry, hostile community on either side of the spectrum, or we can say, I'm going to not listen to that noise, and I'm going to do things to make my world, my Jewish community, my country, a better place. And that's what we try to teach at Jolt. We try to teach them what little acts of kindness could do. So it's broken up into two parts. Every month they meet every other week. And of course, pizza is a big part of the meeting because it's in the evening. But besides that, the first session is always about education. No point for getting these kids to go to Baycrest to work with old people if they have no concept of what Baycrest is. Why did Baycrest start to exist? I mean, I grew up with the story that a few old Jewish women got together and bought a house on Brunswick and started an old age home because there was no place for Jewish aged people to go. And that grew into one of the most premier senior living environment in the world. I mean, it's world renowned. It's now it also deals with the public now. It's not fully Jewish, but we teach them, where did it start and why did it start? It started for a reason. These Jewish institutions had reasons. What it does now for Jewish seniors, Holocaust survivors, and others, what can they do to brighten up the life of a senior? Baycrest does huge fundraisers. It doesn't need Jolt to raise $1,000. It needs Jolt to bring its beautiful young people in and do programs with the seniors. So that the young people are no longer afraid of old people or the environment, and two, to lighten up the atmosphere. It's one of the highlights of Jolt every year. But there's other things we do. We bring in Shorish. We teach them about the Jewish value of agriculture. We teach them about the quality of our environment, how to preserve our environment. We take them then to the Shorish farm and they do an activity there. So they see the connection between their learning and how it actually looks on the ground. And we find that putting those two things together is actually what makes the kids more engaged. Because we can always say to them, give us $10, we're going to do this. Give us $50, we're going to give this. And then we can take a big present, a big picture of the check and say, oh, we've done this wonderful thing. But unless they have a hands-on experience, they don't actually connect it. It's a 360 degree way of processing education. It's learning about it, understanding how you can interpret that individually, and then how you could use that as something to move forward with. Another wonderful example is we do a toy drive for an abused women's shelter there, and they collect presents and we wrap them up and then we deliver them. And then the executive director of the shelter comes and speaks to the kids, because it's obviously secret places and all that, speaks to the kids and talks to them where those presents went. Who are the people that they are helping? What is the socioeconomic, ethnic breakdown of the community? So the kids understand we're not just giving a toy, we're giving a toy to someone in crisis. It's the same thing we try to do with our Bilum Israel program. When we went to Nahalal or we went to the daycare centers, we would have an educational session prior to that explaining. Everybody knows what a daycare is. Not everybody knows what a CHW daycare is. Who's their population? Why do they need our school supplies? One year we did a fundraiser to help with their tablets for their education. And then they get to go to the daycare, or they get to go to Nahalal, or they get to go and spend time with the surfers who we're trying to build community with, and understand, oh, now I understand why they were talking about this. This is the actual impact that it has. So what started off as a Toronto-based program, grew into our second location was Montreal. Our third location was Vancouver, and our third, which happened 4 years ago, was Halifax. And the Halifax community is a very interesting community to talk about. I know that CHW doesn't have that many members out in the Atlantic region, but many of you might not know that over the last 10 years, the Halifax Jewish community was trying to attract Jewish immigration to Halifax, because obviously their community was dwindling, where a lot of their postgraduate members were coming to the east, or coming to Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver. And they brought in a lot of Israeli families and a lot of Russian families who are not connected to our summer camp out there, Camp Kadima. And there was like a hole in their, there was no youth movement for them. And they're not ready to send their kids, or cannot afford to send their kids to Camp Kadima. So they approached us and said, can we start CYJ programming out here, even if it's not through the camp? And I said, well, the whole idea is that CYJ, the movement, is not about the camps. It's about just offering Jewish and Israel programming to the community. So we started off this amazing community in Halifax, where we get about 80% of the kids between the ages of 8 and 17 out to our programs. I'm not going to say the number because it's not huge, but the fact that we're attracting them, and they don't feel connected to the Halifax Jewish community, the settlers, let's call, has really helped with their assimilation into Canada, has helped them connect to the Jewish community, because we do work out of a synagogue there. Many have made connections within the synagogue. It's something that we're really proud of. Sorry for the coughing. I'm just getting over a cold. Some of our, do you want to do the successes, Ellie?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered a lot of them, but I would turn our focus to number 3, which is the understanding of the importance of Jewish communal work. And, when I was a participant on my own Bilum Israel in 2014, I was invited to a CHW meeting to talk about what we did in Israel. And, I was there again during a war in 2014, during the Operation Protective Edge in Gaza, and they asked us to talk about our experience. And I had already been involved in the youth movement, but from a youth camper, familial perspective. I had never seen a group of women, all Jewish, coming together out of their own desire to be in a communal space and to do something together of similar values that they found meaningful. And that's what we're trying to model and do ourselves here at Canadian Young Judea, and just start that spark of, oh, there's a value, there's an importance um, of being part of the Jewish community, not only as, considering yourself Jewish, but also putting time, not only money, but time and effort and commitment into being part of something larger than yourself, such as Jolt, such as Canadian Judea, such as CHW. We're really our goal is always just to have those sparks, to plant the seed. We have them for we have young people for a very short amount of time. You're young for such a short amount of time, and you're an adult for so long. So we have a really condensed but really important opportunity with our participants to plant those seeds and to get them to start thinking. And what we learn is that Judaism and a connection, it's really important that we start it early and often. And that's why we have so many different opportunities for our participants to engage. Some of our learnings, especially in the last year, since October 7th, all of us have changed. Every single Jew, whether you consider yourself a Zionist or not, I believe the whole world has been impacted, whether by the news cycle, people around you, protests in your city, whatever it is, we've all been impacted by October 7th. And of course, the Jewish and Zionist community specifically. We've learned a lot in the last year. We've learned a lot about what it means to be a Zionist youth movement and what people come to us looking for. There is a whole community and saturated market of Jewish summer camps, Jewish youth movements, synagogues, different committees that you can be a part of, organizations, charities. There's a plethora of opportunities. So what makes us special, and why would people come to us as a place of solace or confusion after something as big and traumatic as October 7th? And Risa and I were discussing this. I actually was out of the country right after October 7th, and I felt so separated from my community. It felt so out of place where I was, that I was talking to Risa multiple times a day, and I joined a Zoom call with hundreds of our community members just to hold space for one another. So what did it mean to be Canadian Young Judea, and how can we support our community members when we, even as individuals, as educators, don't know what support we need to feel normal, to feel secure? But what we learned most importantly is the value of listening. Organizations and movements like ours were rushing to, and rightfully so, and all of our work is extremely valuable and needed and for their specific communities, but we were rushing to provide so many opportunities to our participants and education, and we felt like we were being inundated as community members. So our constituents, if you will, also must have felt that way. So we really wanted to be a place where people could come to us. And Risa was on the phone almost every day, just talking to our alumni, holding space, being that motherly figure, if you will, that educated figure, someone who's coming from it from a standpoint of study and real care and the ability to hold space. So we call that learner-centered education. Our curriculums, our trips, Biluim Israel, Jolt, Machane Lev, as you heard, is always on the move. It's always, we are not a static organization. We're a movement for a reason. We're always moving forward. So we take what our learners provide back to us, the feedback, the verbal feedback, the emotions that we come out of things with, the questions that we're posed with. We take all of that and we become better for the next time. We never have a curriculum set. I mean, we have ideas and we have schedules and we have all this to make our movement work, but with the ability to be flexible to the needs of our learners. I could go on to learner-centered education for a long time. That was a huge part of my studies. So I'll cut it off there and move on. another big component of what we've learned and what we've been striving towards for the last year is allowing difficult conversations to occur in our movement, but also educating people on how to have difficult conversations, to be a participant in a difficult conversation, because we believe that that's the only way to truly learn and to have a valuable learning experience is if there's some level of discomfort. Of course, everybody should feel safe and secure in their education space, but hearing something that might not settle well with your preconceived ideas or what you believe to be true can be very unsettling for somebody. I can give you an anecdote from our past Billowing Israel trip this summer, where we went in the north to a za'atar making factory. And the woman coming to speak to our group at the factory introduced herself as a Palestinian woman. And immediately the hairs on the back of our participants rose, their hackles went up, because they've spent a year at home dealing with for many of them, their first touch and taste of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. So their backs were against a wall. And listening to them question the Palestinian woman and listening to her and the way that the dialogue went back and forth, we observed that it was unproductive and something that we didn't want to say that was a CYJ experience that we were proud of. We felt that we did not do our job in preparing our participants for these conversations. So we quickly shifted gears with our participants. We allowed them to, one, simmer down because the temperature was very high. We gave them a couple hours to simmer and we brought them all together. And Risa and I stood up in front of them and we kind of bared our souls on moments in our life where we had to really look at ourselves and question how we came to the way we interacted with a situation or the way we reacted to something or something that really gave us pause, especially when it comes to Israel, questioning our own ideas and our own ideologies. And from there, us saying that we've been there too, and now let's move forward. Let's learn how to do this together. Let's learn how to have uncomfortable conversations that we might have never had with somebody before. Let's do this together. So we got our group together in what we call Chevruta, or small group study, and challenged them to really confront themselves and were they their best learner in that education moment? Did they listen enough to the person? Did they ask the questions that were really valuable, or did they ask a question that was a soundbite that they wanted heard? Did they make space for the other learners to ask questions, or did they take up too much of the time with the guest speaker? And through all of that, it was very important for us to tell them, your opinions are your opinions, and we're not going to stand in front of you to tell you that your opinions aren't valid. We're not asking you to change your opinion. What we're asking of you is to look at yourself and say, am I being the best learner I can be? And how can we all be better learners to be better educated, and thus then become better educators when they move forward as leaders in our community for our participants, our campers, as they become camp staff and movement staff in the future. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing for 17-year-olds to sit and be very introspective from all sides of the political spectrum. And it was hard for our staff too. Many of our Israeli staff, our Canadian staff found it quite difficult. But in that discomfort, in that challenging moment, we had participants come up to us after that were maybe the top speakers of the conflict, or the people that really felt like they didn't have a chance to have their voice heard. And they said to us, we needed that. It was not part of the schedule, but we needed that so much because now we feel like we can spend the rest of the 4 weeks in Israel learning, maybe changing our opinions, maybe not, but listening to narratives that we've never been exposed to. And only through that can we be well-rounded people. Again, not asking anybody to change their opinions. So it's an interesting process to go through.
I'm going to finish on the importance of possibility models. And I know we're running out of time. So I just want to say that I think kids need role models today. And I'm not talking about Taylor Swift or some football player or some influencer off internet. They need real people who have walked the walk and talked the talk. And that's a reason why we added chaperones into our Poland program. But even Tova, who, was very low key on our Poland program, but one of our participants went on the surfing day during the summer in Bilam, Israel, wants to raise money for that program, reached out to Tova, and because Tova's become a role model of a Jewish, middle woman like myself, who gives back to the community for nothing more than she believes in the community here and in Israel. And kids need to see more Jewish role models who are relatable, who are doing great work in our community, who don't necessarily wear all the bells and whistles, are just, grassroots workers. And it gives them someone to look up to and something to strive for. And also someone to confide in and to ask questions. And I think that's really important. I think there's no more slides, right? I think I'm going to end this with, we do a lot. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what we do. I can't even tell you everything we do because, it's all in my head.
Can't remember.
It comes out in crazy times. But without the support of Canadian Hadassah-WIZO, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. We wouldn't be able to help the kids that we help. And I truly believe that the work of Zionist women groups or Zionist youth groups or anybody who's doing work to teach Israel and make a space for kids is more important now than ever. And I just want to thank you for your support.
Thank you so much for having us. And if you want to learn more about what we do, you can see our website below or follow us on Instagram. But we're so glad that you took the time to have us here and took the time to join us to see what we do. And again, thank you so much to CHW, to Tova, and to your whole team for having us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Risa and Ellie, for joining us today. I'm going to ask you to, stop sharing your screen. Since I took over in 2021, I've ensured that CHW not only continues to support CYJ, but increase support. And we see the importance of programs like Machain Lev and started to invest in it because no Jewish youth should feel marginalized and outside of our family. So I just want to say kol hakavod for all the work that you do in inspiring future Jewish leaders. Not only does our community need it, but the world needs it because these are kids that are on the right path and have the right values and will continue to inspire the next generation. So you're helping to shape the minds of our future leaders, and that's so special. I want to encourage those who are watching to put your questions in the chat. We have a couple of minutes for Q&A, but I thought I would just start off by asking either of you, whoever wants to answer this question, if you can share one or two stories about an individual, you don't have to give their name, but an individual student or camper who has been really impacted by CHW in a special or profound way, or maybe an iconic moment that sticks in your mind that that you can help and inspire us.
Yeah, I absolutely can get us started. In my second year on Bilam Israel, so 2 summers ago, I had a participant from out east in Halifax, and what we had learned from the previous camp is that they're queer, and kind of on that path of exploring gender and their sexuality. And as I've been a previous staff of Machane Lev, I knew, okay, no problem. They're just like any other kid, let's have them on the program. And Bilam Israel was such a transformative experience for them that they really confided in myself and my assistant director at the time about what their life was like back home and what they were struggling with. And what we found out was their mother is struggling with addiction. They live with their grandmother, and they're transgender, and exploring what that means. And living with their grandmother means that the gender conversation has taken a backseat to all the other stressors of life. And I asked them, have you ever heard of Machane Lev? And I'm not privy to scholarship information, so I'm not sure what goes on with the financials of the program. I deal with the front end of the campers. I don't need to know their financial situation. But they disclosed to me I'm a scholarship participant, recipient. So I really don't think, I'll have to fly from Halifax back to Toronto, and I can't afford the camp fee. And I said, okay, hold on. Let me figure this out. We're in the airport back on the way to Toronto, and the kid is melting down. I can't go back home. Life is very hard for me back home. I'm really struggling. And me and Risa got on the phone, and I said, okay, this kid's going home to Halifax in 2 days, and I found them a flight for 3 days from now back to Toronto. How do we pay for it? How do we pay for them to go to Machane Lev? And Risa said, don't ask. I'll deal with it. Just send me the flight information. And that participant came back to the city of Toronto and went to Machane Lev. And it's one of those life-saving stories. And we're so proud of this participant. They're one of the participants that comes off the bus like this and then leaves like this. And now they're back for their second year as a camp staff. So that, and what I now know is that the scholarship money did come from the generosity of our donors, and as well as CHW, and of course, supporting the camp itself, creating that space. I just can't, there's no words for that. And I saw that they're now going to our convention at the next weekend, and really found a space where they can be themselves, take a moment and a break from their home life, and just explore and be a young person, unburdened by everything that life throws at them.
That's a great story, and it makes me feel so good that we were able to offer a lifeline to a young person. So
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing that. That's fabulous. So there's a question, and I just want to share, apparently the chat's disabled. So if anyone watching has a question, just put it in the Q&A. Is the upcoming conference for the queer community youth, is it just for the youth, or is it for anyone else? Can you tell us more
anyone in
about
high
it?
school. It's from grades 9 to 12. It's this weekend, November 22nd, but we're still, accepting anybody who's interested in coming. I can put our emails back in the chat or on the screen or afterward. But yeah, please get in touch, and we're happy to facilitate that.
We also, after that, we have a family Hanukkah coming up in the early December, where it will be for kids, allies, parents, whoever wants to come. So if that's something you're interested in, you can reach out to Ellie or I, and we'll get you more information.
Great. Another question is, do you have any plans to expand your JOLT program to other cities? I think right now you're in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal.
Right. Yeah. Right now we're in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Halifax.
Okay.
But if there is the need in another city for this type of programming, we're always open to it. If you have a connection to the local federation or other communities in the area, we always like to also, if we're starting fresh, like to partner with another organization, so we can have that little bit of a boost getting started. But we're always open to it. If there's the need, we're there.
Excellent. Thank you. We want to know what has changed since October 7th. What big changes have you noticed with the youth that you're interacting with? We have found that there's been an increased interest in participating with CHW, a need for community, and more people wanting to start chapters, join chapters, get involved. What are you seeing with the younger age group?
So I would say that the need to be together, 100%, the need for community, 100%. But on the negative side, I think especially what we saw this year in Israel with the 17-year-olds, meaning that they had just finished grade 11. And then I spoke to my directors in the fall, and they all felt the same way, was what we felt was there was a fear in them that they've never had before. They were always quite, aloof and arrogant about their freedoms and their rights. I remember being in Israel in the lobby of Jerusalem, and I literally had to break up a fight between two participants because one was saying, "What are you, stupid? You can't see that we're in 1939 right now," and the other one saying, "I think you're getting carried away, and it's bad, but it's not that bad, and there are no comparables." And I'm thinking those are conversations that we never heard before. But there was a real fear of this new anti-Semitism, and they don't know how to deal with it because everything has been so easy. And their parents are a generation younger than me. So, like, I'm a child of survivor. So, oh, this is happening again? No big surprise. This happened to my family already. But for those under 50 or 55 and younger families that have lived in the golden age of Judaism, I don't think there's ever been a time in Jewish history that has been so good for the Jews, especially in North America, since 1945 until October 7th. And to all of a sudden, to see this ugliness around them has made them feel insecure, has made them feel isolated, has made them feel fearful, and therefore coming together, not necessarily for any big educational reason. We did a Shabbat dinner for the alumni of Bilum Israel 2024. Usually we would have 10 kids show up. We had 44 kids in Toronto, 44 kids showed up, and 3 came in from their small cities. Not because we're so great or our Shabbat dinner is so delicious, because they wanted to be together. And then we brought them a speaker, a young Druze soldier who was injured in the war of post-October 7th. And they spoke to him, and then they tried to get the speaker to go to chat. One girl's trying to get the speaker to come into Haverhill, where she goes to school. There's that need to show other people this is our story too, because our story is not out there. So it's been quite exhausting. I'm sure, Lisa, you can admit, when you live in it 24/7, it's taken a lot of resources of my colleagues and of me and of my staff. And I don't see the outlook yet, like the out button yet, but I'm hoping soon we'll see an out button.
Yeah, my therapist calls it vicarious trauma. That's what I'm experiencing. Just embedded in it constantly all over my social media. It's just, it's there. Does CYJ have any plans on doing any pre-university training with these kids to help prepare them for the tsunami of anti-Semitism they're going to experience on campuses?
So we don't have a normal program for grade 12s because they go into staff training. Most of our kids go back to be in one of our affiliated camps, and they go through training for that, which does include anti-Semitism, life on campus type of training. But this year we've decided in May we're going to have a conference or a seminar or a day where we bring in all the first year staff that will be going to our camps for the first time, but also graduating from high school and going into university. A, to talk about life on campus, and we'll bring in professionals for that, and B, to talk about how to have these conversations at camp with campers who might be younger or whatever, not as knowledgeable as them, how to be the role model in teaching without preaching.
Like that, teaching without preaching. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap things up a little bit. First of all, I want to thank both of you for your time today and sharing stories and helping us understand the programs that we're helping to fund. So thank you for being here. And as always, thank you for being part of our family. And I also wanted to just share that CHW is in the midst of its end of year campaign, with a campaign focus on healing young minds and helping to build resilience against trauma. We're supporting youth through leadership training and development of Jewish identity, as Risa and Ellie shared. We're providing a supportive and calming environment for gaining life skills, personal values, and stronger work ethic. We're strengthening broken families through specialized therapy and excursions in Israel, fostering cognitive, behavioral, and emotional improvements through interactive horse therapy, again, at our youth villages in Israel, and funding scholarships for needs-based students and academic excellence. Those scholarships extend not only through to the CYJ programs and camps, but also to the schools that we're funding in Israel. By the end of this year, we hope to raise $250,000, and we're certainly well on our way, 67% of reaching that goal. We have on December the 3rd, Giving Tuesday, we have a $50,000 match, a one-to-one. So anyone who has not yet donated to the campaign, I encourage you to make your donation that day and have it doubled. We're hoping to provide specialized therapy programs for students. It's $250 an hour for this therapy, and we hope to buy as many hours as we can during those 24 hours. So on that note, just one last a reminder that we have a webinar next Monday, November 25th at noon. It is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. It is a coalition event presented by our Jewish women's organizations. Our moderator is Dana Levinson, and our guest speakers are Rolene Marks and Jay Rosenzweig in conversation on this topic. So if you have not yet registered, thank you, Jen, for putting the link in the chat. It is a complimentary webinar, and if you did not know, in Canada, 187 women were victims of femicide last year, and 22 women were victims of femicide in Israel. A woman or girl is killed once every 10 minutes globally. So this is an enormous issue, not only in Canada and Israel, but around the world. So on that note, thank you both again very much for joining us today. Thank you to Tova, as always, our new national president, and everyone enjoy their day. We look forward, thank you, Tova, for your wave, and we look forward to seeing you all in future. Thanks again, guys. Be well.